G'day everyone, we are back. No, your eyes do not deceive you. Robbie Turner is not here with us this evening. Don't worry though, he hasn't jumped ship. He and Tamara are taking a much-earned holiday break over in Canada. I think they probably had about 1,000 beers at the ice hockey today, so they're having a great time refreshing themselves and revamping themselves. We're looking forward to tonight. We've got a whole hour of an opportunity for you guys out there to reach out, ask any questions. No holds barred. Feel free to ask anything you like. We're going to discuss a few things while we're here tonight, some stories from the trenches.
Yeah, always.
We're going to tell you a little bit about what's going on in Axon HQ and the things that we've been up to as a team. And we also want to wrap around, some of those things that are happening out there in the market. We want to give you a bit of insight. With us having our finger on the pulse every day in the office, we look at these things, the trends, and have a look about the impacts on us holistically, nationwide, and also, you guys out there in the investing world as well. G'day, Angie. Hello, Franny. We've got a couple of people in the house already.
Legends.
Mate, Ryan, hit us up, mate. What's been happening in your world? It's been a pretty full-on busy, last month. What are a couple of the things that you've been seeing sort of, with the clients that you've been taking on the journey?
Yeah, mate, it's always a busy month every time we catch up and do this live Q&A. We love bringing the stories from the trenches, talking about our experiences and what we generally see when we speak to so many people every month.
The important thing about that is a lot of those people that we're coaching, on day in, day out, they're you. They're sitting out there and a lot of those experiences and a lot of the things that they're going through, you guys are going to be feeling those experiences as well. Us having the benefit of seeing that across a huge number of people allows us to provide, some insights and some sort of, profound points if I might.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, mate.
No, you're right, mate. G'day, Patina Ryan's in the house. KB, how you doing, mate? Thanks for tuning in. Mate, as I said, busy month for me. Some of the things that I've come across in the last few weeks, certainly, and it's prevalent in the news, and I think the biggest one that stands out for me at the moment is we get a lot of people coming to us and asking, I want to get into the property market.
Yep.
There's generally two ways you can do it, right? You can either go down the path of an existing build or an existing property, or a brand new land and build.
It's one of the biggest questions that people have when they come through the door and when they're thinking about investing.
Yeah. And without a doubt, it's the number one at the moment, and it probably comes down to obviously the media stuff that's going on. You see a lot of builders in the industry seem to be falling over, but we'll talk about that later in terms of the context of the greater Australian building market. But if we look at existing versus brand new, I want to talk about that for a little bit tonight, because it is a common question that we get, and it's generally always based around I want to get some immediate return on investment, ROI. I want to purchase something and immediately start getting, whether it's tenant, rent, etc., straight in the door. If you go down the brand new land and build path, obviously you've got to go through a construction phase before tenants can move in if it's an investment property. So there is a period there where you are servicing portions of a mortgage whilst it's being built.
Mm-hmm. It is a consideration, mate. It's absolutely a consideration, but it's not something that's overlooked when we're going through the planning and assessment. And
that's the most important part is if you sit down and compare them, right? We get a lot of questions around, what's the interest that I'm going to pay on a loan while the construction is being built versus diving straight into an existing property and getting a tenant in. Now, when we know brand new land and build, and if the people out there that have been following us for a while, we know that when we go down that path, we pay stamp duty on the land only. We don't pay stamp duty on the build.
That makes a huge difference with those deposit and costs up front.
So up front, if you're buying an existing property, you're going to be paying to the tune of sort of 15 plus grand straight away in stamp duty.
Yeah. Sometimes, depending on which state you buy, of course, because each state has a different levy that you need to pay or a stamp duty that you need to pay.
Yeah.
Stamp duty being the state revenue department tax that they apply to the transfer of any large asset, cars, motorbikes, houses, and the like.
Yeah. And so if you look at that and go, okay, well, there's a bit of cash there that I'm going to save up front by going brand new land and build, but I've also got to service a loan as the construction's being going through. So it's generally an offset. If you zoom out and have a look at those like for like, that can help you. What you save in stamp duty can help you offset what you might pay in interest as you move through the build.
It's also not just an immediate comparable either, because you need to have that stamp duty up front, right? So if you're going in for the acquisition of an established property, which cash flow is an important piece of that, but it's not the main piece. But if you are going into acquiring an established property, you need to have that cash in your skyrocket before you can step over that start line.
Exactly.
Whereas interest on a loan, gives you the opportunity to be able to feed that beast along the way.
6, 7, 8, 9 months along the way. Yeah,
exactly, mate.
So it's one of those things where we can talk the numbers with people. We can take them through that if we're looking at immediate return on investment, or if we zoom out and go, what's our long-term goals here? What do we ultimately want to achieve with this property? Is it a quick grab for cash, or is it a property that's going to go up in value, in capital growth? Is what we're after in terms of long-term wealth creation, and also at the forefront of what we do is risk.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, man.
Yeah, like it's the biggest part of what we do in terms of our plan and strategy.
Now, all investing, every investing involves risks, and whether that's a share portfolio, whether that's crypto is more like gambling, whether it's a share portfolio or any kind of investment strategy that you take will inherently involve risk. That's what it's all about, right? Risk versus reward. It's absolutely imperative though that as we go through that, we understand what those risks are, inherently understand what they are, but not just what they are, because that's one piece of the puzzle. But we also need to understand how to mitigate those risks and cure them if they do arise.
That's right.
And so that's part of it's absolutely a fundamental part of what we do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's if you look at risk mitigation in terms of a brand new land and build versus existing, we all know that if you go out, well, maybe some of us don't know, but if you go out and buy an existing property, you get a building and pest inspection report done before you hand over any cash to make sure that there is some element of cover when you purchase that property. Now, we all know that, or for those of that have gone down the existing property path, that building and pest inspection report isn't a complete report.
It's not.
They can't see in the walls. They can't see under the slab. At the back end of that report, and you hear us say this a lot sometimes, that there's clauses and stuff that allow the building inspector to say exactly that. Now, I'm being a bit flippant, a bit facetious here, but ultimately you aren't covered to a point where if there is something wrong significantly with the property, you're in significant trouble to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, especially, mate, if it's if you're looking at developing a property portfolio or going down the path of it being an asset, so not your own home. Now, full transparency, the only the only established property that my wife and I have bought is our own home, and the reason is because we're living in that, and so if the shitter blocks up, that's just us managing that. Whereas if it's an investment and that house becomes, or that investment becomes untenable based on any of the issues, you're not back at start state zero. Yep. Like you've got this asset, you're not back at start state zero. You're back at minus 40 because you've got to find that you've leveraged yourself, likely to have leveraged yourself as much as you're able to do so comfortably and safely. You've thrown as much of your own cash into this, investment as you want to. If you don't have the capacity to be able to resolve that issue in a timely manner, that asset could become vacant. Therefore, it's no longer an asset. Yep. It's a liability. You're covering all of that, which is that level of risk for us is just too high, and it's likelihood versus consequence, right? Mm-hmm. The likelihood may be low, but the consequence can be extreme when we're talking about being in, having a mortgage to service and the like. And
when you talk about if people ask about short-term return on investment and something goes wrong with the property, your return on investment is gone.
Yeah, it's in the same shitter that just busted. Yeah. Awesome, man. So one of the things that I've seen over the last the last 4 weeks, it's been an amazing 4 weeks of coaching. Like I've had the full spectrum of coaching young single blokes. No, I haven't coached any young single females in the last month. Right up to couples with a few kids, right up to people that are just preparing for retirement. So I've literally seen the full spectrum of individuals from the ADF community coming in and wanting to secure their financial future wherever they are in that journey.
So your cohort, the ones getting up to retirement.
Rich, if you're out there listening, that's you, mate. Good friend of mine, Rich Watson. Just congratulations on an illustrious career. He just retired. No, he's not the same cohort as me. He's had a few indoor cricket seasons, a few more indoor cricket seasons. One of the trends I'm seeing though is young people trying to break into the market early.
Yeah. Yep.
In the current environment, with the current acquisition cost, and with the current lending parameters, and we'll talk about why interest rates are where they are at the moment. We'll talk about that down the back end. So stick around if you're listening. We'll pick through what that means and how it could be relevant to you. We've seen that borrowing capacities are pretty light on. So young people, single borrowers, are not able to necessarily get themselves over.
Yeah, they're coming in quite soft. Yeah.
Which is okay, right?
Of course.
There's two opportunities in our life where we have the capacity, generally speaking, to be able to create wealth and create a platform to be able to sort of work towards retirement or dream home, whatever your goals are. It's great if you can do both. It's fantastic if you can do both. But when you're in that preparation phase, which is right back at the start, so you're sitting down there, you're thinking to yourself, is it right for me? What do I need to do? How do I go about it? When you've got all of those questions and you're starting to save your dollar dues and putting those away, that preparation phase, you need to make sure that you are applying a delayed gratification approach when we're talking about it, okay? So it's not one of those, investing's not one of those things in the property market. It's not one of those things where you can sort of huff and puff after, one, not being able to pull the trigger in the first instance. What it's about, it's more important that if that does occur in your circumstance, that we've got a plan in place, that you've got a plan in place to be able to navigate whatever that looks like. Because the market conditions as they are right now are not going to be the same as the market conditions in 12 or 24 months.
No.
And so it's imperative that you have that's an officer word. It's really important that you have a plan, a structure, and a strategy. Because what we do here is we keep revisiting it. It's not one of those things where we go, straight through the door, see you later. That's not us. We're about, righto, we can't do it now. How do we get to a point where we can safely do that? So if you're out there and you're young and you're single, please make sure that you've got goals. Even if you haven't reached out to Axon yet, make sure you've got goals in your life and you're working towards those goals, because financial security is something everybody should be thinking about.
Yep.
Don't do what I did and spend the first 10 years of your career making memories. It took me an amazing woman to come into my life to sort of pivot, and it'll probably be the same for you young ladies and gents out there. But the more you're putting in place now, the steps you're putting in place, the behaviours and habits to move towards those goals, the more you're going to turn around when you're 45, when you're old and crusty like Ryan, and you're gonna sit there and say, "Fuck, I'm glad I did that."
Yeah, and it's I've got a number of people at the moment that are in a holding pattern. They're in a savings pattern, so they've got a timeline. They've got a savings timeline that we put together for them, and it's a 2-year timeline.
Yeah,
they're looking at an acquisition in 2026, 2027. But that's okay.
It's more than okay.
They've got their goals. They're short, their 10-meter target, which is this property as well. They know the path that they've got to take, and that's going to ultimately help them, maintain the rage over the next 2 years to continue to save for that deposit and costs. Because then once you get to that point, leverage is your best friend.
Yeah.
And then you're off and racing.
Yeah. Now, I had a young fella, 24 years old, who came to me. I only coached him a couple of days ago, actually. If you're listening, mate, you are an absolute fucking legend. 24, and he's managed to put away, I won't disclose the exact amount, but he's managed to put away over 150,000 based on good money habits.
Phenomenal.
So he's one of those people that's just like, I don't need to go out on the piss every weekend or every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night like I did when I was a young budding lieutenant.
That's a weekend.
That is a weekend. It's an extended long weekend. Makes the work days a little rough when you do that. But no, he's one of those dudes that's gone. At some point, he's had that realization very early. At some point, I want to be able to stop trading my time for other people's money, because ultimately that's what a job is, right? I know that I don't want to do that, and I know that I want to do that at some point. And I also know that along the way, I want to have my money work for me.
Yeah.
Those phenomenal habits are going to put that guy in such an amazing position, and his family. He's sort of working towards a family as well. I'm not sure if he's discussed that with his partner yet, but he's working towards a family
Spoiler
as well.
alert.
Spoiler alert. No, so just goes to show that, particularly if you're in the Defence Force, right? And we speak about this all the time.
Yeah.
Having that roof over your head, that guaranteed roof over your head, like without being flippant, ADF are not really feeling the pinch of the rental crisis, right? There's a requirement for all ADF members to have a roof over their head. When you're in that circumstance, look, it sucks when you get a pay rise and, you get that 3.8% pay rise, and all of a sudden your DHA rent goes up as well and you're fucking kicking and screaming. I can assure everybody out there that when you're out and you're paying full market rent, holy dooly, it's a pivoting.
DHA can be a pain in the ass, toll can be a pain in the ass, but, at the end of the day, you walk around Gold Coast, you look at the rental market here. I know it's different for people in different locations, but there's 100 people lining up down the street to get into a rental property. And that's at, $600, $700, $800 a week to get into the rental market. Now, we know that DHA and RA is probably the cheapest rent in Australia.
Yeah, it's like living with your parents.
Outside of living in your mum's garage.
Get off the tee to the wharf, Romulus.
So it's when you've got that perspective, I guess, and that's what's afforded us being outside and looking into defence these days, is that people really need to squeeze that juice. They really need to understand the benefit of those housing entitlements and the power of those entitlements to leverage into wealth creation through, property.
Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, all I did was piss and moan about DHA and kicked and screamed about it and that sort of stuff. And it genuinely wasn't. Let us make those mistakes for you. We've done that. We've had the career. I didn't realise how much of a benefit it is. And it's the least, whenever you're standing around the bloody Furphy tank at work or punching a dab out the back, whatever it is, that's what most truckies do. A meat pie, a move fucking milk and a dab. When you're standing around...
I don't know, mate, we had prawns and caviar, so I don't...
People talk about DOAS, they talk about HPAS. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how it is, but they are the things that are generally spoken about, right? Yep. RA Married Quarter Members' Choice. They're almost, I don't remember them ever being something that was mentioned to us. They are they're one of your greatest assets in terms of being able to generate wealth.
Yep.
Because you're saving around half of the market rental rate.
Yep.
And if you're in a relationship, you're still saving that amount. You can potentially have double income coming in the door.
Yeah, and you pivot what you could be spending on rent to investing, and you use the power of compound growth over time, all that sort of stuff, and you will thank yourself when you're done with the military. Yeah. I've got a couple that I spoke to a couple of nights ago that are both living separately on separate bases in LIA.
Yep.
And they're paying $80 a week each.
That's amazing. Now, living in, we always talk about...
It's not the most...
I'll actually correct that statement. When I joined up, when Jesus was playing marbles in Jerusalem, when I joined up, the live-in accommodation was absolutely horrific. I think the carpets had been there, pre-World War II type stuff. So it didn't smell that good. It didn't look that good. But again, it was cheap accommodation. Yeah. Since then, though, since the LEAP accommodation and those next generation, if I may use that term, the next generation of accommodations come in under the projects, it's actually pretty bloody reasonable, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I know you don't want to be there when you don't want to be the slim, you don't want to be the senior living member. Sure, I get that. But what we want to make sure we're doing is if you've got access to that, having that delayed gratification approach up front and being able to make those personal sacrifices. You might see some of your mates that are, in a share house and that sort of stuff. I also made that mistake. In a share house, burning through their cash, seeming like they're having the time of their life, but when they rewind and take a look at their circumstances in 10 or 15 years, if they haven't taken action and they haven't made those sacrifices up front, they're just not going to be in a position to be able to do what you're able to do if you are smart with your money and like you said, mate, squeeze the juice out of that entitlement.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's one of the ones like I reflect on, speaking to people in connection calls and at the start of coaching sessions, and I don't think I've had someone come to me and say, how can I maximize my RA?
Yeah. No,
they've always said, how can I maximize my DOHAS?
HPAS, all that stuff. Yeah. Now, they are important. They're extremely important, and it's as important to get them right.
Yeah.
But if you think about the dollar for dollar value that you're getting out of your RA or your married quarter, and depending on your career, how long you're in and that sort of stuff, but the dollar to dollar value is... market's different. Yeah. Market's different. How much you're saving on a week to week, month to month basis.
Yeah.
One of the other things, mate, that I've seen is the real delta between couples coming to us with kids and not having kids.
Yes.
Most of you will know. Well, maybe you won't. But I don't look at him like this. But the banks see my son as a liability, right? So. He's fantastic, by the way. I love him. I love him to death. The banks don't. What I'm saying is that when we have Billy Lids in our life, when we've got kids in our life,
you got dependents.
They're dependents, right? Yep. So any kids at home under 18, anyone over 18 that is that's non-working, so a non-working adult that's living with you, so it could be a uni student, etc. That because that's another mouth to feed. Okay, soccer boots to put on the kids and that sort of stuff. The banks will see that and they'll reduce your borrowing capacity as a result. Yeah, and it can be quite significant. It can actually be quite significant when we're when we're talking about investing in that sort of stuff.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you can't.
No.
So please don't get me wrong out there. What I'm not saying is I'm not saying that you can't invest when you've got kids in your life. It just becomes more of a challenge, and we've got less of a market to be able to target when we're in that situation. And I've coached my age couple. I was going to say young couple. I'm not young anymore. I'm salty, old, grey, grumpy, all that sort of shit.
Definitely grey.
Coached a couple, got that, and they're well on the path now to building their first investment property, which was amazing. But there's a huge opportunity if you are sitting at home and you're double income, no kids.
Yeah.
To be able to go through. Were you guys hadn't had Mo yet?
No, we were double income, no kids
Yep.
for our first one.
Yep.
So and the borrowing capacity is through the roof with two defence wages, and living in DHA.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunately, I think if that's the right term, it is difficult to have an increased borrowing capacity when you've got kids, but that's part of life. You get your kids and you raise them up. And
I was about to say, you get the joy of having kids. Amazing.
But like as you said before, it just means the scope, the field of view or the scope of your plan just becomes a bit tighter.
Yeah.
It means you've got to be far more accurate in the type of acquisition.
Yep.
And a little bit less opportunity, but that's okay too.
Yeah. And it's also, it's that thing that you need to make sure that you're not putting yourself in any kind of financial stress. So,
risk.
If you are thinking about, there's greater things to think about than just, you and your partner sitting there. Once you've got those kids to think about, you want to make sure you've got those real solid cash, but those cash buffers, coming in. And adversely, as I said, I'm actually coaching two couples with kids, one over the line, one not yet. And then another young couple down in Canberra. Two absolute cracking human beings. Guy loves motorbikes. The young lady loves that he loves motorbikes. It's fucking fantastic. I wish I could say that about my wife. She thinks I look like a marshmallow on my motorbike.
She's not wrong.
They're in a position where great amount of cash, all that sort of stuff in their back pocket. Really diligent couple with their finances. They've got no kids. Came back and the borrowing capacity nearly blew my socks off. So when you're a double income, no kids, you're really in the strongest position that you can be in. You've got two incomes, one housing expenditure measure.
Yep.
So you're really in that position to be able to leverage off that early on. And again, in the same way as I was saying before about having those goals and working towards them.
Exactly.
You and your kids are going to thank you for it down the track, because it's not just about being able to pass assets onto your kids. Like, that's one piece of the puzzle, one slice of the pie, if I may. The other part is being able to educate them through that. Like, if you've walked that walk and you understand what it's like, you have that mindset, or your axons are firing in the right way, you're then in a position where you can share that information to your kids and have them set up from an early age.
Yep. Yeah, phenomenal. What parent doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, mate. Exactly.
Franny's got a question.
Okay.
Yeah.
On impact, and then Paul Cooney had a question up earlier as well.
Sorry, mate. We were missing that there. Don't listen, Vanzi.
So Franny said, what else has a huge impact on your borrowing capacity?
Yeah, good. This is one of my biggest gripes, if you like, at the moment, and that is consumer debt.
Yep.
Yeah, car loans.
I've got another one. Yep.
Car loans for me at the moment, I'm seeing a very high number of people coming in with car loans that are not proportionate to their income.
Don't worry about the SSU.
Yeah. And it's, look, I get it. I've been there before. We've bought new cars. We've salary sacrificed. We've done it all. They absolutely butcher your borrowing capacity, and it really hampers your ability to grow wealth, because your payments going out each month are making someone else richer.
Yep.
All for the sake of a depreciating asset that you're going to pay interest on.
That's exactly right, mate.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. You go out, you get a loan to buy that nice shiny car, right? If I can say up front, the bottom line up front is don't go and buy a car or an expensive car until you can pay cash. Wait, just wait. Get a reliable car.
Yep.
You need to be able to get yourself from A to B. But if you think about it like this in simple terms, you're going to get a loan that you're going to be paying interest on. So you're paying a chunk of interest down you go. By the time you finish, you've probably paid somewhere between 25 and 40% interest on the value of that car.
Yep.
Let's say that's a 5-year loan.
Yep.
After 5 years, what's that car worth?
Mate, it's like depreciated 4 or 5 times.
Exactly.
Like, it's significant.
It's significant. So you're now in a position, if you think of a net position, you've paid this much in debt, and you saw my hand come down there, mate. You've then got, it's not even an asset, you've then got a car that's worth significantly less.
Yeah.
Your net position is far worse because you don't have an asset in your life. If you get a vehicle, if you can manage doing this, get a vehicle that you don't have to get a loan on.
Yeah. And it's like the definition of an asset is something that produces you income.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So people come to us and say, oh, I've got a $20,000 asset, it's my car. No. And you've got a loan on it, and you're paying interest on it, etc. It's, at the end of the day, it's, like as you were saying, if you've got a $50,000 or a $40,000 car that you got on finance after 70 months of paying however much a month, you would have paid over 50 grand for it, and it's probably worth 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
ballpark figures. But and also the while across those 70 months, you've hampered your ability to grow wealth either via, getting into the property market or whatever other vehicle you might choose. Your cash is feeding the beast for a car loan. And it's a very common thing that I'm seeing at the moment.
It is really common. I'm going to take that one step further, man, and I want to talk about salary sacrifice cars. I've seen a couple of these come across, in coaching sessions that we've had, that I've had over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months for that matter. A car loan is one thing. A salary sacrifice car loan or a salary sacrifice novated lease, whatever you'd like to call it, is another. It's a whole nother ballgame. Yep. Like it impacts your borrowing capacity magnitudes more than what a normal car loan does.
Triple threat.
And if so, anybody that's out there listening to this now or listening to this after, if you're sitting in the brew room and you flip to page 2, 6, 8, 10, 12 in the rag, the Army rag or the Navy rag, because they're every second fucking page, there's a novated lease, come and save tax dollars and all that sort of stuff. If any of your mates, colleagues, peers, friends even suggest the idea, please get them to call me. If they've got any intent to want to invest over the next 5 years whilst they've got that lease in their life, please tell them to dig a little bit deeper. They don't necessarily need to call me, but please get them to dig a little bit deeper. It absolutely butchers your borrowing capacity. We saw, going through Axon, it broke our hearts. Two families in unique circumstances went through the process. We got them to wrap themselves in cotton wool whilst they were moving towards land settlement. Didn't discuss with us that they were going through the process of getting a novated lease. Both, as I said, two separate families, completely separate incidents. And then when we went through to finance, the novated lease, the salary sacrifice car,
popped up.
It popped up, and they were not able to go through with their acquisition. It cost them a significant amount of money, and it broke our hearts because this is, two young families that have been nugging away, to do the right thing. And it's just, they just didn't sort of reach out to us.
Yeah. And look, it's, pre-COVID or just post-COVID when interest rates were incredibly low, salary sacrifice and or just normal car loans might not have had such a big impact on people's borrowing. But at the moment, the way that the interest rates are, the way that the lending space is, inflation, all that environment, when you've got extra debt, extra liability sitting on your plan, and those that are familiar with our plans, the little orange boxes, it's going to have an impact on your borrowing capacity. And we've got to be extra cautious. We've got to plan and strategize around, and it might mean a delayed gratification of an acquisition that's going to be post paying that loan off, whatever it looks like. But if we can get ahead of that and make sure that we don't have those in our life, it's really going to expedite our journey to wealth creation.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, we've got your question there through, mate. We're going to chat about interest rates and the like at the back end, because what I want to do is give some context as to why the RBA uses interest rates. So I won't forget, mate, or I'll try not to forget. And if I do forget, I'll bloody give you a call. What else we got? Sorry, as everybody knows, I'm not amazing with technology. I'm just sort
Neither
of
am I, mate.
just
We got
fighting
two.
around. Yeah, it's just two peas in a pod. I was trying to think of a really nice way to say that. One of the other things we've got going on, if Daniel, if you can, mate, just sing out if there's any questions that come through. One of the other things that we've been around the grounds is not necessarily engaging and coaching with clients. It's getting out on the ground and seeing the properties.
We got outdoors, yeah.
We did get outdoors. I forgot my sunscreen, forgot my hat, forgot my sunglasses. I was like, no hat, no play. Daniel, the videographer, nearly made me sit in the car by myself. But we got out, and it's part of the the journey that we love being a part of, that experience where we get out there and actually see what it is you're acquiring. We get out on the ground and take some videos, take some photos, send them through and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we've got some of the locations that we take our clients to are a stone's throw from where we are. So we've got the ability to hop in the car and shoot up the road and actually go and be on the ground and, walk on a slab, get sunburnt, kick some tires, make sure that the properties are the way that they should be. And it's a really insightful experience to share that with the clients as well.
Yeah, and Franny got an opportunity to go out to some absolute rock stars
today, right?
This morning, and I was actually really, really jealous. These people are really lovely, and they're VVIPs here in Axon HQ. I'm really glad you guys are happy. Like it's one of those things. There's a couple of points through the journey where things start to become very real.
Yep.
When the slab goes down, when the frame goes up, when you get keys handed over, and then when you get tenants moved through the door. So, when it's available and it's an opportunity for us, we love getting out on the ground and sharing that experience with you because it's, it's something that you've worked really hard for.
And
really,
for
really
us, we muck around on a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So when we can go out and actually, see the tangible result of what these people are achieving. Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is phenomenal, mate. And to see the smiles on their face, it really makes what we do, it really puts the cherry on top for us. We spend, they come through the door and they meet us first, mate. And so, it's one of those things where they get to the back end of the experience and they've actually got an asset in their life. I get an opportunity to do it in about a week and a half. I'm going out to a young fella's place that I coached a little while ago, and he's a young digger. And he's, put away all his dollars and cents to be able to get this asset for him. Great money habits, great focus, great dedication, and he's made it happen. So it is possible to do as a young single guy or girl out there. You just need to make sure you're bloody diligent when you're going through it. All right.
What else we got? What have we been doing? So something else that we've been doing external to coaching and clients is, we're very big within the Axon walls of CPD, so professional development. So, we've been spending a fair few hours a week bettering ourselves and learning a whole bunch of stuff through business, business related activities. And it's been, someone like me who's been defense and not necessarily business related, you two. Before that, it's a really incredible opportunity that Axon provides. Yeah.
We've Robbie and Tam have this kind of mantra. We provide. We provide all of you guys out there with coaching in areas of our specialty and areas that we've developed those skills in. They really focus on, well, why aren't we developing why not? We are, but why not get coaching and mentoring in the space of business development as well? And that goes right across. We've joined an amazing program where they have thousands of hours of education, a lot of engagement and that sort of stuff. And so it's really providing us with an ability across the business to be able to look deeper into, what's available right now for us, what we can optimize and what we can do, ultimately so you guys get a better experience, but also what's coming in the future. There's a lot of huge technological changes that are coming in the future that we can sort of leverage off to be able to provide a better service, access better, better information, analyze things more quickly, that sort of stuff. And so it's a really, really unique thing. And I'm fortunate enough, Robbie and Tamara are going to take me away on a couple of the events with them as well, and maybe some of the other team members. So look out for that when we do go down to those events. We'll pass it around on our social media and stuff. A really good opportunity to see what best practice looks like in the industry, and then of course come back and inject that into the business and all of the staff members. And how fortunate are we, mate? How fortunate are we as to be part of a team? I suppose us as the team at Axon, extremely fortunate to be in a position where we've got to the owners of the businesses that are looking to optimize us as human beings as well as the business.
And it's not PME. It's not voluntold.
Mate, it's not defence riding. It's not sitting there and working out your fucking borders and making sure you got your what is it, your paragraphs all lined up. No, mate.
I just took you right back, didn't I?
God. I nearly had a bloody fit.
That leads nicely into the quarterly planning tomorrow.
It does, mate. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Dubs. Go for it, Rob.
Yeah, mate. So we've got our, for those that have been following us for a little while, you would have seen us put up posts every now and then where we do our quarterly review.
Yep.
And so we've got our third quarter tomorrow morning.
We do,
So we're going to shut down for the first half of the day, and we're going to just absorb and reflect and review on the previous quarter, and then also do a little bit of forecasting for the next.
Yep. So most of you Ruperts out there will understand that you need to sit. Rupert is a derogatory term for an officer. Most of you officers out there, you'll know that the absolute importance of planning, right? Now, not just for our investing, but planning what we do, and then you'll also understand the requirements to break that down into sort of achievable tasks when we're talking about our goals. We call them rocks here in the business. It's what civvies call them. I don't know. They're key training tasks. they're objectives, right? Key objectives. So for us, we sit down and once a year, so annually, we sit down and we do a big analysis, big session of planning and forecasting. What we need to do, what we can achieve in that 12-month period, and then we break that down into quarters. Now we do review that on a weekly basis, but this quarterly opportunity is a chance for us to bring the whole team in. It's a chance for us to share our wins, talk about what we've achieved, but as RT likes to say, it's like pouring the mortar through the bricks. Yep. It's for an opportunity to reflect on what we've achieved over the last 3 months, so we don't just zoom through it, because as everybody out there knows, if you don't reflect on what you're doing week to week and month to month and quarter to quarter, you get to the end of the year and you go, "What the fuck just what happened?" And so it's super important for us, to celebrate our wins and that sort of stuff.
It's a really insightful day, and I always look forward to particularly the build support team sharing their previous quarter, because ultimately that's as you guys out there know, that's the bit where the property's built, right?
The rubber hits the road.
That's the rubber hits the road. That's the tangible result. And when we get to sit down and look at how many handovers that have occurred in the last year or the last quarter, that's really what we find most value in, because ultimately that's the end result for our mission statement.
Yeah, absolutely. All the girls have come in; they can't wait for it. Franny's saying she can't wait for graphs. My God, we've got graphs on the back of the toilet door at home. It's Franny's our freak in the sheets when it comes to Excel. She's the one that does all the whiz around and puts everything in graphs and all that sort of stuff to make sure we can reflect on it in an efficient manner.
It's not just us two up there going,
pointing at dots and circles. There's still a bit of that. All right, let's switch gears a little bit now.
Man.
We've talked a lot about what's happening in the business, but let's talk about what's happening outside of the business. So let's talk about what's happening in markets. Let's talk about the RBA. I want to do a little bit of that.
Answer Paul's question,
Yeah, answer Paul's question and add a bit to that for everybody out there. But, mate, give us a bit of insight in what's happening in the building market. What's happening with supply chains? What's happening in...
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing, and I spoke about this earlier on, was the prevalence in the media at the moment of builders going under or going into administration or liquidation. Now, if someone's out there consuming a lot of mainstream media, it's probably going to look like there are a lot of building companies going under. And you're probably thinking, what the fuck is going on with the building industry? And that's okay, because that's what you're absorbing through the media. But if you look at the building industry as a whole across Australia, yes, there are building companies going under. We're not shying away from that fact. But as a percentage of the overall building industry, it's actually quite small.
It's not even a percent.
It's insignificant.
It is. Yep. So I think we were doing some some stats and having a look at some market research this afternoon, and there's over 455,000 construction companies in Australia. Yep. And what was it about? What was it
1,700 in a financial year, 22 to 23.
So 1,700 of those went under. Now, sure, there are a couple of big ones that jumped into the media. Metricon and that sort of stuff. And there were, certainly that did, of course, cause some, some shake and wave across the industry. But when we're talking about an industry of 455,000, construction companies, it's less than 0.38% of those that are going under. Now, we know that businesses in Australia go under, pressures, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. And if it does happen, it's important, there are a few things that we need to be able to do to prevent it from happening or to limit its opportunity for it to occur when we go through the build. Yep. And then there's also some things that Ryan, I want you to talk about, how we manage that when we go through. If it was to occur, worst case scenario, what's our risk mitigator?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is getting into the property market. You need to get into the property market with a team that you know, like, trust. Yep. Right. You need to be able to trust. So ultimately, working with someone that has a reputation, knows the industry. We spend 40 plus hours a week deep diving into this industry. Knows what the market and the trends are going on in the industry, and can provide that oversight on what does it look like and the right steps to take. Yep. As opposed to just potentially just walking into a display center and picking a builder that you don't know anything 100%, about. Yeah. That's putting you again at a element of risk. The next piece to that is once we move into builder selected and we're going through the build phase, we need to make sure that we've got the right insurances in place
depending on what state we're investing
Yep.
in, they've got different policies. But we've got to make sure that the builder and you have the right insurances in place to protect you should worst case scenario occur.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Right, let's talk about, let's go back to Paul Cooney's question. So RBA used to review the percentage rates monthly. Now it's 9 times a year. Is that making whatever difference it was, is that making the difference it was supposed to? Mate, to be honest, I don't know. Okay? That there's no bullshit here. I don't know what the difference that is shifting it and the amount of times that they were supposed to reviewing it. I know that the reason that they shifted towards reviewing it every month was because it was, because of COVID. So it was skyrocketing. The interest rates were going through the roof. It was coming out the back end of COVID, not going into it. Interest rates were skyrocketing. So what happened? Every bastard and their dog, they received all of the payments. They were still working from home, et cetera, et cetera. Now, sure, there were some people that lost their jobs and stuff, and that was sad. But a lot of people, when they weren't allowed to go out and spend all their hard-earned cash, they saved it up.
Yep.
And when they came out the back end of that, what happened? Everyone had a shitload of money.
Disposable income.
A lot of disposable income. So the government's response to that, mate, was to look at it more closely. The government's response was to charge the RBA to look at it more closely. That's why they went to a monthly, a monthly review of what it is. So, mate, my assessment of that is because we're starting to see that level out now.
Yeah.
That they'll start going back to the
Peter back a bit.
normalisation of that review because it used to be quarterly, right? Let's talk about the RBA for a moment because I know that it's the RBA and what and how and why they use interest rates in the way that they do. So the RBA is charged by the government, as I just said before, to manage the inflation rate of Australia. Okay, so what the inflation rate is when you've got a dollar in your pocket, that dollar 2 years later, the RBA's target is for that dollar to be worth no less than 3% by the next year. Okay, so it's the loss of purchasing power. Okay, and why do they do that? So we don't go into a state where people can't afford, where we are right now, where some people are struggling with, with cost of living crisis and that sort of stuff. So when everybody came out the back end of COVID and they had all that cash, what did they do? They ran out and spent it. They went and bought TVs. They went and had the time of their life, and and rightly so.
$9 broccoli.
Yeah, $9 broccoli. What was it? I think it was $15 for a lettuce there for a while, and you had to sort of fight people for toilet paper in the shopping centre and all that sort of stuff. So when they came out and spent all that money, simple supply and demand says if there's more money that's been pumped into the money supply, okay, it makes it more expensive because it's more competitive, okay, to be able to buy things. The RBA has a very archaic lever that they can pull. It's primarily or principally the only one that they have, and that's the cash rate. Okay, so the RBA loans the banks the money. Okay, loans them their money to be able. Now, there's some funky other stuff that goes on, but in the main, it loans the banks the money, and the banks then loan that money out. Okay, the RBA has the cash rate. So when you see on the news the cash rate is X, that is the rate that the RBA is loaning the banks their money at. Okay, it's not the rate that you're going to get, unfortunately, for your home loan, because the banks throw on their little bit of their
cream,
their bit of cream on top. So they poor banks, just so they can make that little bit of profit to put the bread on the table when they go home. Okay, so if the inflation rate, as it did out the back end of COVID, is going up, okay, and it got up to over 7%, which is phenomenal, given that the target is 2 to 3%. What the RBA has the capacity to be able to do is increase that cash rate, okay? And you'll see the banks pass that on immediately, which means that it is more expensive to borrow money, okay? Because you have to pay back more on that, okay? And a huge part of the Australian economy is driven by investment, okay? So once that starts squeezing people out, as we're seeing with a lot of single people right now, starts squeezing them out of the capacity to be able to go ahead and invest, what that does is lower the competitiveness in the market, okay, and slows that economy down.
Yep.
Now, the RBA threw out a record number of anchors. So I think of it like a ship, right? The economy's like a ship. The RBA just started tossing all of these anchors out, almost in a state of flux or panic, to try and slow the economy down so we didn't hit,
and
obscene levels.
it did to an extent.
Yeah,
it took a little while.
No, absolutely. That's why I refer to it as a ship, mate, because it takes, you can't just turn a ship on a dime. It takes a little bit. But they threw those anchors out furiously.
Yep.
Now, what we've seen is as I said before, the target inflation rate for the economy is between 2 and 3%. So what we've seen is we've seen that come back down from over 7% to around 3.4.
It's a bit, mid threes,
Mid threes, okay? So what that means for us, and I'm not Ross Gittins and I'm not an economist. You probably don't know who Ross Gittins is.
Nah.
I'm not an economist, but I did study economics in high school, supply and demand. What that means is that because the cash rate has been put up to be able to treat that inflation rate, okay, if they maintain it at the same level, okay, what does that mean for the economy? It means that it's going to continue on that downward spiral.
Yep.
Okay, and I say downward spiral, it's going to continue in a downwards trend. Okay, so what that means for me, it's only logical that once they start getting it back to, like we said, it's a ship. It takes a while to slow down, and it takes a while to speed up. So it means it's therefore a logical equation that if they continue to maintain it at the current rate, then we're going to be in a position where we will dip below 2%, which they don't want either, because otherwise we start staring down the barrel of recession.
Yeah. And it's, what that means ultimately for the housing market is, as you said, as the inflation rate goes down, interest rates should drop.
Yep.
The banks should pass those on.
Yep.
Some won't, but they should pass that on, which means that the supply and demand of the property market, it puts upward pressure on the market.
Yep.
Ultimately, it's multifaceted. There's other things involved: employment, education, all those sorts of things, population growth. But ultimately, macro level interest rates should come down.
Yep.
Which means that things like borrowing capacity that we spoke about before gets higher. It gets easier to get into the market. It means more people get into the market. It should have positive impacts on things like capital growth if you're in the right location, etc. So it's a positive outcome.
Yep.
It just takes a little while to get there. As you said, it's a bit of a delayed approach.
Yep. And if you're sitting there and going, I don't have the borrowing capacity now, how much are you going to be fucking kicking yourself if you do get to the point where you have the borrowing capacity, but you bought a motorbike?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're in a position, and I didn't do that. I didn't do that, mate. I saw that look. You're going to be kicking yourself if you're in a position where interest rates come back down. You're then in a position where you're competitive to be able to borrow, and you don't have the deposit and costs saved up. So
your ambush isn't set. You're not ready to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mate, that was almost army. Holy shit!
Okay.
Did you
Itchy. I'm breaking down hives.
Did you? What do you call the training that you do where you sit in a hole for 3 days and call it bloody? Don't you go ComServe? No, it's not ComServe. That's for pilots. Shut up, Luke.
I haven't sat in a hole, mate.
Let's talk about land supply. Let's talk about land supply, man.
Land supply, yeah, good one. This was, something we were acutely aware of in our little field trip the other day. When you go out into these locations that we invest in, just the amount of development that's happening, and the term diminishing land comes to mind.
Holy snappers. Don't know what, man.
Yeah, you walk out and they go, there is a lot going on, but there is not a lot of land left.
Sold, and slab,
Which is
frame.
Very good, clear, combat indicator that the upward pressure of the market is working and there's population growth occurring.
Yep.
Which means that investing in these locations gives you the highest probability of, growth, et cetera, et cetera. But the land supply shortage in conjunction with, population projections for some areas, it's really imperative that we target these locations.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it really is.
And it becomes even more imperative to have, like we often refer ourselves to the big gorilla at the door, at a nightclub, where, if you're trying to line up and if you've got a lid like mine, you're never getting in anyway. But if you're trying to line up and, the line's down around the corner and out, out the street, and you're trying to get in there like if you're competing against the rest of the market to be able to get in there, you can be waiting months and months to be able to just get access to it. And, there are some places that do like bloody lottos and stuff like
ballots.
that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they rack and stack you in a ballot form depending on income, jobs, et cetera, which, I don't think is fair, but that's just the way that some of these developers operate.
One of the benefits of working with us, of course, is we're that big gorilla at the door that just sort of lifts that velvet rope and allows you to walk through the door. So we get access to exclusive land that gives us the ability to be able to expedite that. Now that's not saying, of course, that everybody's going to come in straight away and go through the process. Like we still need to make sure that it's the right fit for you, and we still need to make sure we've got all that up front. But we've got the capacity to be able to access that exclusive land.
Yep.
You hit on a point, mate, about population growth and population trends.
Yeah.
You just mentioned it before. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, it's it's a key driver for us. It's a key ingredient when we talk about the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market. We've got to see long-term population projection. It is the number one ingredient that's going to drive capital growth.
Now, some of the locations, we look at locations in southeast Queensland. It's not hard to jump online and look at the projected population growth for some of these areas. Yeah. There are hundreds of thousands of people projected to move to these areas over the next, decade or two.
It's almost you're kind of like, where the fuck are they all going to live?
Yeah. They can't build houses fast enough.
They can't build houses fast enough. And I know that Albo's trying his best. I'm pretty sure. I know ScoMo doesn't hold a hose, but I think Albo's going to have to hold a hammer if he keeps going this way with his government policy. But it's one of those things. Like, if we're targeting these areas where people want to live, work, and play, of course, they need to have the commensurate number of houses, which, of course, as we talked about before, why one of the reasons we target that limited land supply. Yeah. But the good thing about that is when you're targeting these areas, because they're master plan communities, the infrastructure development that goes with that is all anchored to that population growth.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking your language.
Yeah, you get my town planning.
Whoa.
Look at you go, mate. I've taught you well.
You dipped your toe in the army there for a minute when you were talking about cam cream or something, and so I've jumped into town planning.
Talk to me about priority development areas. Woo.
PDAs. Yeah, mate. So it's absolutely imperative that we do we track these population trends and that sort of stuff. Now, for us, there's it obviously breaks down into a number of different areas, but there's two pretty significant areas that we sort of, keep our finger on the pulse, and that's domestic and international.
Of course.
Now we know that the majority of people internationally are coming to Sydney and Melbourne. Okay, and that's a pretty significant. We've seen a huge uptick. Like, we kind of knew this was going to happen. It's the old pendulum swing after COVID. Where we sort of locked down and said no one can come. Now we're kind of like, everyone come. And that's made up by a whole number of people. It's made up by skilled migrants. It's made up by permanent residents, and then it's made up by a significant chunk of that is actually made up by students. Okay, so those areas with like, I think it was 600,000. 600,000 students came back over or held a student visa in Australia, sort of thing. And then this was at the end of last year, and so it was about 120,000 of those were estimated to stay beyond. Yeah, and so you can only imagine what that's the amount of upwards pressure that's going to place on the housing market, and that requirement to be able to provide accommodation, provide that. And this is where we go back before about talking about being in the ADF. It's not one of those beads of sweat that sort of have to slide down your face where am I going to be able to put a roof over my family's head? But you must understand that doesn't last forever.
Yeah,
we all become veterans one day, and I absolutely assure you that the second that you don't put that uniform on anymore, guess what? DHA says, pack your shit, you're out.
You're out. See you later.
Go and find a tent somewhere. You're not our problem anymore. Get out. You need to sort of stand on your own 2 feet.
Yep.
It's so bloody important. Like, I can't tell you how important it is to make sure that peace of mind or that security of you transitioning out of defence and being able to put a roof over yours or your kids and your partner's head. It's so bloody important. So make the most of it while you're in and leverage off it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We've had a late question come through here about Canberra property market.
Canberra. Whoa. Alrighty, let's have a look. Hi guys.
Hey buddy.
Great informative session. Can you please explain some market trends and property booming in Canberra? Is it a right time to buy in Canberra as first home buyers or buy somewhere else? Just lost that for a sec. Somewhere else as an investment property in Sydney, Perth, or Queensland.
Hang on, we've still got more.
Oh, and it keeps going. More. And leverage it is after a few years to buy your dream house. And interest rates are high at this stage, but I keep losing the... Is it right to jump in May 2024? Oh, a lot in that one. Awesome.
There's a lot, mate. Do you want to take the Canberra and I'll talk about the strategy?
Yeah, sure. Look, Canberra, being in defence, talking to a lot of defence people, we naturally get a lot of people interested in Canberra.
Yeah, it's where majors go to die. Or 04s, I should say.
And, it's got... and it's got a decent... If we look at, our fundamentals of property investing, value for money, growth, and rental yield, yes, you can look at it. It's a city that's backed by government, right? So it's... In terms of rental yield, it's probably stacks up.
Yep.
For us, when we look at the market trends, though, long-term capital growth, if we zoom back, and I know past performance doesn't necessarily dictate future performance, but if we look at the Canberra property market in the last 10 to 15 years, the long-term growth just doesn't stack up for us.
There's if you look around the limited land supply for one, okay, the population growth is going to be there. It's a stable population. Yep. But if you look at, for me, the value for money of what you can buy. Yeah, that was
the last bit of value for money. Yep.
It'll cost you $1 million for a fucking red brick home.
Yep.
Now, if that's your family home, sorry, I've missed the name. Mr. Malik. If it's your family home, mate, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to go up in value, right? You need to separate the two ways in which you go into acquiring property. You're either doing it with an investment mindset, or you're doing it with a mindset of, you know, I want to buy this with my heart and my wallet, and I want my family to live there, and I want my kids to grow up there, and I want them to go to that specific school. That's when you're doing that. If you're paying $1 million for a red brick home and you can afford it, and it's around the things and the people you want to be around, fine, no dramas. But the second we start pivoting towards the investor mindset, the dollars and cents, the value for money just isn't there. Okay, if you need to spend $1 million on a red brick home, you know, and I say red brick because I grew up in red brick and I hate it. But if you need to spend, you know, dip into your pocket for $1 million for your first investment property that's an established house that has, you know, because buying and building in Canberra is ridiculously expensive. Ridiculous. I've got two friends that are looking at doing it at the moment, and it blew my socks off. We're talking 20 to 30% more. So if you're looking at buying an established property and as an investment, you know, you expose yourself to all of those risks that we talked about before.
And I think you can take that same, you know, overarching message and apply it to Sydney as well, mate. Like Sydney's value for money for an investment property at the moment, go above $1 million. Particularly if you're going to be doing brand new land and build. And where that's going to put you is, you know, effectively out in the boondocks.
Right out west. Past,
out God's country where I'm from, Penrith.
Out past the Riff. You've got to say that like you got no teeth.
So, you know, when we apply those fundamentals, mate, when we talk about value for money, you know, there's no reason particularly if you're a first-time in property investor, to go out and spend that much cash on an investment property. In terms of Perth, look, for Perth, when we talk about the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market, we don't compromise on all 7. When we do our market analysis on Perth, it just doesn't stack up in terms of the 7 ingredients. If you look at what drives the market over in Perth, it's fundamentally one industry. And that's mining. the resource and mining industry. Now, when that fluctuates, so does the housing market. When the arse falls out of it, so does the housing market. And we've seen that. We saw the boom and we saw the drop, and it's still recovering to a point where it hasn't gotten back to pre-boom.
Now, there has been some recovery. Don't get me wrong, mate. If you have a look at the Perth market over the last sort of year or two, it's also experienced that COVID growth. It's experienced the national growth that we saw, which is very unique because there's no one housing market in Australia. But as you said, mate, it is so inherently tied to the resource and mining sector that any, the mines fart and the property market in Perth sort of catches a cold. I think that's how the saying goes. Mate, let's talk about strategy, bro. It would be remiss of me and irresponsible, to be frank, for me to give you strategies around your own personal circumstances. Like, I need to understand what your family structure is, your incomes. I need to understand all of those things before we can start, picking it apart. I can't tell you, bro, if it's the right time for you to buy in May 2024. But what I will say is this: don't try and time the market. Okay, if you have the right research, the right strategy in place, okay, it's not about timing the market because it'll go through its natural ebbs and flows and its natural cycles. It's about buying time in the market. So the more time, the basic principle is the more time that you can have in the market, you give yourself exposure to time and compounding growth. So that's one of those key things. I hope we answered that for you, mate. If not, feel free to reach out, mate. Jump on our website, watch our videos and that sort of stuff.
And if you just to kind of put an end to that as well, if you target the right type of property, your price point, your circumstances, your risk profile, that's going to buffer you from your interest rates. That means we don't need to try and time the market. It means that we can get the right type of property for you so that we can ride that wave of whatever the interest rates are going to do.
Yeah, man. As we wrap up tonight, I've had an absolute ball here, man.
It's gone quick.
As we wrap, it's absolutely flown by, as it always does. Hopefully everyone out there has enjoyed it as much as we have. I've got a little bit of a challenge for everyone out there. Now that we've hit over 480 properties, okay, that's a pretty significant chunk. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Dubs, mate. DJ Dubs, throwing up the chicken and the dog.
Eagle, mate.
I want you to all go out and start speaking to your community, and I challenge you to find someone in your community that has used our services or reached out to us. Start engaging with them and getting an understanding of who we are, what we do. You know, because we can sit here with our Axon capes on all day and tell you how great we are because we know we went through the journey, right, as clients. But once you start speaking to people and get an understanding, you know, of someone that's gone through the journey and got it right, you know, I know you're going to love it even more.
Yeah, love it.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for us. Thank you so much. We will see you all in a month or beforehand if you reach out.